Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a totally new way of looking at one of the most basic parts of being human, our emotions. It's a theory called constraint resonance emergence theory, or CRET for short, and it argues that what we call a feeling isn't just some switch getting flipped in our brain, but something way more complex and honestly way cooler.
I mean, think about it, right? When you get that jolt of fear or a wave of happiness, it's so easy to imagine that some little fear neuron or happy circuit just fired up. We tend to think of our emotions as these simple, almost automatic inputs that just happen to us. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if emotion is something our entire system creates right here, right now, on the fly?
And this slide really gets to the heart of that shift in thinking. The old view is pretty simple. You see a snake, a fear button gets pushed. End of story. But the CRT view, it suggests something much more elegant. Emotion isn't a button. It's what's called an emergent macro state. It's not one instrument playing a single note. It's the entire symphony that comes to life when all the instruments play together in perfect, complex harmony.
So, that brings us to this core concept, the emergence of feeling. According to this theory, an emotion isn't some pre-installed program waiting on your hard drive to be run. Nope. Instead, it's a high-level state that literally emerges from this constant, dynamic conversation between all these simpler processes happening all over your brain and your body.
To really get this, let's just stick with that symphony analogy for a second. Okay, so you've got your violins, your cellos, your trumpets. Each one is a simple part. By themselves, they just make noise. But when they play together, following the rules of the music and resonating with each other, something totally new is born, the symphony itself. Cred says emotion is the brain's symphony. It's the music, not just the instruments.
So, how does this actually happen? Well, this isn't just a cool philosophical idea. Carrot actually proposes a kind of formula, a recipe, if you will, for how this emotional music gets made. And it's all built on the incredible interplay between two major workspaces in our mind. All right, the first part of this equation is what's called the cognitive workspace. You can think of this as your brain's high-level command center. It's the part that's constantly scanning the world, trying to understand what's going on, and figuring out what you should do next. It's the part that sees a bear and immediately starts asking, okay, what is that, and what's my escape plan?
And the second part? That's the homeostatic workspace. Now, this is all about your body. It's that deep, internal feedback loop that's monitoring everything from your heart rate to your blood sugar. Its one and only job is to keep you alive, to make sure you're viable. It's constantly quietly asking, are we safe? Are all systems stable? Are we okay? And here it is. This is the heart of the whole theory. Emotion isn't in one workspace or the other. Emotion is the resonance, that active two-way feedback loop between what your mind is thinking and what your body is physically feeling. It's the conversation between your brain asking, what should I do? And your body asking, am I safe? When those two lock into a tightly coupled rhythm, that is the feeling we call emotion. But, for that amazing resonance to even happen, your brain is already doing this unbelievable balancing act 24/7 on so many different levels. It's constantly setting the stage. This isn't a simple thing. It's built on this deep, deep foundation of nonstop regulation. You can kind of think of it in three layers. Down at the micro level, your brain is basically a power grid manager, just balancing metabolic needs to keep the lights on. Then, at the meso level, it's a weather forecaster, always making predictions about what's going to happen next. That feeling of surprise, that's your brain flagging a prediction error. And finally, up at the macro level, your brain is the CEO, trying to make all these competing demands work together to create one stable, coherent plan. An emotion finally emerges when this entire three-level system locks into a specific resonant pattern. Okay, so if emotion is this super complex state that emerges, then what's it for? Well, according to this theory, emotions are anything but random. They are an incredibly sophisticated summary that guides our behavior, and it's all based on 5 fundamental principles of survival. What this table is really showing us is that every feeling we have is basically a data summary, a quick readout of how we're doing on these deep survival goals. For example, that creeping sense of anxiety? Cret would say that's your brain signaling that your prediction error is rising. Things just aren't going the way you expected. That amazing wave of relief when you finally solve a problem, that's the feeling of that error collapsing. Frustration is a signal of low control, while those incredible flow states happen when all these factors are humming along in perfect harmony. Emotion is the ultimate dashboard for your survival.
And this all leads us to what might be the most profound and mind-bending implication of this entire theory. It draws this really sharp line in the sand between a system that just processes information and a system that actually feels something, tying consciousness itself directly to the biological fact of being alive. Let's break this down. On one side, you have functional emotion. This is basically a control signal. You could program a robot to get a reward signal when it finishes a task. That's functional. The system is calculating value. But on the other side, you have felt emotion. That subjective, qualitative thing. The what it's like to actually feel happy or sad. It's not just calculating value, it's experiencing it.
And here is the absolute critical difference. In a living thing, like you or me, the system that is feeling the fear is the exact same system whose survival is actually on the line. Our minds and our bodies are one and the same. A robot's processor might calculate a threat, but its physical existence isn't at risk in that same deeply embodied way. For us, our consciousness and our physical survival are completely, fundamentally tangled together.
And this leads to a really beautiful and powerful conclusion from the theory itself. Emotion is the bridge between consciousness and life. It's what happens at that exact intersection, where our awareness meets the biological need to keep ourselves going. Right there, that's where feeling is born. Which leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. If a machine's continued existence isn't physically at stake, if its own survival isn't part of the very thing it's experiencing, could it ever truly go beyond just calculating value to actually feeling it? This theory suggests that to truly feel, maybe, just maybe, a system has to first be truly alive.